Natalie, thank you for your powerful testimony tonight. Would you guys just thank Natalie again? What a great job. What a tremendous blessing. I so appreciated what Pastor CJ had to say about the blessing that it is to have a front row seat watching God work powerfully in people's lives. And that has happened all throughout our congregation this year, and what joy that brings to my heart. I like what Paul says in 2 Thessalonians 2:13, but we ought to always to give thanks to God for you, brothers and sisters, beloved by the Lord, because God chose you as the first fruits to be saved through the sanctification by the Spirit and belief in the truth. And so it does fill all of our hearts with joy when we hear stories like Natalie's. This last year for me, if there were some ministry highlights, it's really quite difficult to narrow it down, honestly. If I had all night, there would not be enough time, even just from the last week. All the things that God has done. I'm watching some of you around this room and just seeing you worship the Lord. And earlier this year, you weren't in that place, and God was faithful and good. And for some of you, you're struggling even now. And I just want to encourage you, listen to these testimonies. God's not done. He's not done. So this last year, highlight for me, a ministry highlight, was having 40 different men come to my house on Saturday mornings, groups called Titus 10. And I see a lot of you around this room, and I love you guys. They came 10 at a time for 10 weeks, and it was just really sweet. And I could have asked any one of them to share tonight, and I see your faces, but I've asked Farris Tarazi to come and to share with you some things that God's doing in his life. It's been fun to watch, and so Farris, would you come on up? Would you welcome Farris as he comes to share what God's done in his life this year?
All right, so if you're wondering how I got up here sharing my testimony tonight, let me tell you, I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure this out. But I think I might have a slight clue. A few months ago, Pastor Chris invited me to his Titus 10 class with some men. Titus 10 class is essentially a men's Bible study, and we go over a book of Titus, a book about Titus that has 10 chapters. Zeke, gotta go over there. It's okay, sorry, dude. That's my boy. Not just a random kid, promise. So we're going over a Titus 10 class, 10 men, 10 chapters, and each week, Pastor Chris asked if anyone wanted to volunteer, or he would call upon a man to share his testimony. I didn't volunteer. And weeks went by, and I didn't have to share anything, so just kind of hid underneath the storm there. And the last week we had, it was week 10. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to share my testimony in front of 10 men. And I was dreading it. But someone brought breakfast burritos. So we started eating, everyone began talking, and no one asked me to share my testimony. I escaped, and I was free. So I thought. 2 weeks ago today, I received a text from Pastor Chris, open it up, asking me if I could share my testimony on Thanksgiving Eve service. I was just looking at my phone, thinking, I think there'll be more than 10 men there. The moral of that story is you can't run from God, and especially Pastor Chris. So now I'll get into my testimony. All right, good evening, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm honored to share my testimony today and how our Lord is working. I'm a wretched sinner with a deceitful heart, desperately in need of God's grace and mercy on my life. For the last 10 years, I've saw my own selfish desires and things of this world. Work became my idol and my identity. The finances that work brought was my security rather than trusting in God. Work was my priority, and everything else came second. Obviously, work is not bad. It's just for me, I had it up here and everything else right behind. I was not seeking his kingdom and his righteousness. I justified that with every reason possible but in the end, it was me wanting to be in control of my own life and not submitting fully to God. I wouldn't admit it or couldn't even see at the time, but inwards, I wanted to be the God of my own life. During these 10 years, if anyone asked me if I believed in God and loved Jesus, I would without hesitation say yes. By God's grace, I was led to the scriptures, and it was like a mirror that revealed the broken condition of my heart, the true condition. When being presented with different passages in the Bible and wrestling with what God says, I had to really examine myself. For example, John 14:15. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. I wasn't keeping anything. James 2:7. So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. I didn't have works. I didn't have fruit. Whatever the opposite of fruit was, it's what I had. 1 John 1:6. If we say we have fellowship with him while we walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. I was lying to myself. Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I tell you to do? 1 John 2:15. Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. I would tell you that I love God, but my actions revealed I love the world. While being confronted with this truth, I knew I was at a fork in the road. If I keep doing what I've been doing, in 30 years, maybe I accumulate the American dream, maybe have millions in the bank, and be successful in the world's eyes, but not in God's eyes. The thing the world will never tell you is at what cost. The relationships with your spouse, your kids, the church, and especially your relationship with God, they will never talk about the negative consequences that come when you put the world first over God. I'm reminded of Mark 8:36. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and yet forfeit his soul? Do I keep doing what I've been doing, or do I surrender my heart fully to God and have his will be done in my life, no matter what that may be? No matter what the cost. I have a wife and 3 kids, a 3.5-year-old boy, Ezekiel, who you saw. Love you, Daddy. A 2-year-old precious girl, Mila, and an 8-month boy, Farris, Tarazi III. More than any material possession I can give them in the world, the only thing that matters to me as a parent is to know they are walking in the truth. Everything else will burn and will be tossed away in the wind. Pastor Rice once told me, what do you want for your kids 100 years from now? That hit me hard. I knew exactly what he was saying. I love my kids so much and care most about their soul. Kids will follow your example of what you show them more than anything you can ever tell them. I heard Pastor Chris say, if you keep hardening your heart towards God and stop listening to his calling on your life, given enough time, God will give you exactly what you want and will harden your heart towards him. That scared me. I knew I had the decision to make, and I knew I had to make it now. I've tried my way for too long. It's a vain pursuit. Chasing our desires and the world's success is fool's gold. I promise you that. I felt God telling me, stop wrestling with me. Stop fighting me. I created you. I know what is best for you. I love you. Let go. I finally decided to surrender and let go. From a world's perspective, it won't make sense, but what would be received is infinitely greater than anything lost. Matthew 10:39, whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. There is life in his name. Christ is life. I want to encourage anyone here today who feels God tugging at your heart, or who hasn't fully surrendered everything to him, and who hasn't let go. Just let go. God is real. Heaven and hell is real. Our eternity is at stake. I'm standing here being the farthest thing from perfect, but I do want to be perfectly honest with you and let you all know that I decided to pursue and follow Jesus. We have Thanksgiving tomorrow and Christmas coming up. There are many people I am thankful for, but the two that kept coming to my mind while writing this is my mom and my dad. Just saw my mom. I should have looked at her. My mom, who is here with us today, and my dad, who is in heaven. Mom, I know you and Dad were super patient with me and prayed continually without ceasing from my soul. I always remember as a kid waking up in the middle of the night and you sitting on my bed praying for me. I can't help but always think without yours and Dad's prayers where I would be. I'm forever grateful for you, and I love you. One final thing, just remember that the biggest thing we can ever be thankful for and the greatest gift we can ever receive is the gospel. The good news, salvation is here. Thank you so much for letting me share.